Welcome to another video regarding recruiting, scams, etc. In this case, we're going to be talking about the company named Artech Information Systems LLC, and this is their Better Business Bureau page. And I'm going to talk about this company because I went through the process of interviewing with them for a position with Capital One, or so they said. And it turned out that it had all the marks of a scam from the very beginning to the very end. And I'm going to cover how you can identify a scam and how to stay away from those. For starters, let's go to the Better Business Bureau page. This is one of the first things that you should do whenever you get a recruiter randomly reaching out to you, especially if it's an Indian, Pakistani, somebody from another country, honestly. But mainly right now, the scam hub is in India and Pakistan, and they're going to reach out to you through LinkedIn. So always be mindful, pay attention. So this company, Artech, I had a recruiter from them reaching out to me. So let's go into the message. This person called me and told me that they were trying to fill out a position and he thought that I would be a good match for that position. And based on what he said, yeah, it sounded like a good match. It was a DevOps engineer position with Capital One. And I have tried several times with Capital One to see if there's an opportunity there, but it didn't pan out. So I said, okay, let's give it a try, see what they say and how it goes, right? So this person talks to me and he says that he was going to need my resume and that he was going to put me through the process. The first email communication that I got from him after our call is this email requesting me to give him a right to represent me for this position with Capital One. And here's his email address from the company. And it says that I need to provide him with my full legal name and that I was agreeing to a rate of $80 an hour on W-2 without benefits, which in the first case is something that I told him that I would not do. I don't do contracts at that rate. And so I replied back to him, letting him know that the information that he sent was inaccurate. I did not agree with that. He then sent me this brief job description of what they are apparently looking for in Capital One to fill this position. And he mentioned that the hiring manager was that person and that it was going to be a 12-month contract with a possibility of conversion, and it would be hybrid in McLean. So once I got this information, then that even raised my rate, because my rate usually for fully remote position. He said he was going to send me a new email. I never received that new email, and then I just got this other email that talks about possible benefits that I could get through the Artech company, and then my resume, which I thought was the resume that I sent to him, because I didn't really read this part here and I should have done that. That was bad on my part. So then in this email, he says that the rate would be $85 an hour without benefits. And I said to him that I could start conversations at $85 an hour if there's any benefits. Why did he send me this benefit sheet here if there's no benefits? There's miscommunication right from the get-go. So with $85 an hour, I'm assuming at least some kind of benefits. I replied saying that I agreed to start the conversations at $85 an hour and I would allow him to represent me for this position. Immediately after I talked to this first person, I start getting inundated by emails from other people from this shady company. For example, there's this Raul Kumar, which then suddenly starts sending me messages about another position with another company. And as you can see, it's always the same modus operandi. So they offer you a contract position, they say it's hybrid, they offer you a kind of an okay rate. It's not good, it's not terrible, but definitely not up to speed with what a contract should be. That's how they start, right? And then immediately after they engage with you, then they start spamming you and trying to retrieve personally identifiable information from you. What do I mean by personally identifiable information? Information that you should never give to a recruiter. Things like a copy of your photo ID that should never be given to a recruiter. In fact, even to HR, because a photo of your identification is something that you can use to open up a credit card on somebody's name, and that's done by fraudsters all over the world to get credit cards on the name of other people. And other information, for example, like your date of birth, social security number, etc. So never provide any kind of information like that to a recruiter. Only to HR, and once you have already received an offer and you have validated that the company is serious. Also, you should never provide that information in an email to them. Emails are by default sent unencrypted over the internet, so you should never do that. You should have a secure platform for HR where you upload those documents and you fill out your information. So I just want to make that clear. This is how they start. They offer you talking about positions, and then the whole process of scamming you starts. Like I always do, I check immediately whether this is a trustworthy company or not. So I went into different review websites. For example, Glassdoor. You can go to the Better Business Bureau. Definitely go there. That's a government agency. So you'll find good information there. And then I saw things that immediately raised red flags for me. For example, in Glassdoor, I found this post by an ex-employee that said that they got a job and then they tried to leave before 30 days. And then they were told that their agreement, like their contract with Artech, had a clause that said that they were on a probationary period and that they agree that if they leave before the 30 days of the assignment, then they would get paid $10 a day for the hours that they worked, which is illegal in the United States. You should never be able to do that. So that was a red flag. I pointed it out to Rohit, and he said, oh, this can be true with other clients, but not for Capital One. That to me was an immediate red flag. But at this point, I knew I was going to make a video about this, so I went with it. I rolled. Then I said, okay, I also read that the payment is once a month. Is that accurate? I've never worked with a serious contractor that pays other than once a week. And he said, this also depends on the client, which is weird, because if you're contracted, the contractor is the one paying you, not the client, normally. And it says that for Capital One, they do payments bi-weekly. And then I said, okay, what is the process like? Recruiting is done via a U.S. subsidiary, I assume. And I said, there's no way I'm giving PII to an India-based office. And I said, do you have an office in Virginia that I could go to? And he said, he's in New Jersey, but they do have an office in McLean. And he gave me an address. I checked out the address, and it seemed to be an office that was used by a recruiting company, but the name was totally different from theirs. It was not their name anywhere in the records. And he said that that was the address, and that he will not ask for PII details until I receive an offer. That part sounded reasonable. That sounded accurate. That's how it should be. So, okay, that was good. And then he asked me to provide my email address so he can send me the job description. And after he gave me all the details and everything, I provided my resume. And then after that, he told me that he shared it with the team and they were setting up an interview with a hiring manager from Capital One. Actually, they said it was going to be 2 hiring managers. And this was going to be the main contact from Capital One that was going to be the hiring manager for this position. And I asked all the questions via email about the process, and he didn't provide me anything. So I said, can you provide me details about the process? And he said, okay, let's get in a call and I'll discuss that. Then he called me and basically told me about the process. He said it would be one interview process. So only one interview with the hiring manager, and then they would decide if they would give me an offer or not. So let's also go into this person here. And this is supposed to be the Capital One hiring manager. The profile of this person looks legitimate, but you always have to be careful because anybody can put anything in the LinkedIn profile. So I checked it out. One thing that I found strange is that there's no experience but the Capital One experience, from the point that he's a principal associate. So he has 10 years of experience in Capital One, but nothing else. I found that weird. Usually you would have something else before you become a manager, and this person didn't have it, and they come from India. I said, okay, other than that, seems kind of legitimate. He's posting Workday links from Capital One. So let's assume that this person is legitimate. And so far, that's just a concern because this company that is talking to me so far looks shady. So I continue with the process with this person. We set up the interview. I'm waiting for the interview to start even 15 minutes earlier than the interview was scheduled to be done. Nobody gets to the interview, and I send them an email saying, it's already 5 minutes past the time that we were supposed to be in the interview. Nobody has joined the call. What is going on? And the person finally enters the interview, and it was a person that was totally different. I had not talked to this person before from Artech. And let me go back one day, right? Because I received an email from them saying that they were going to do a prep call with me for that interview. So that was a day before. They set up a call only with the Artech people. And I, again, talked to two new people that I had not seen before. And there was no prep at all. The whole point of the call was to pressure me to give them personally identifiable information. They wanted me to pull my driver's license, my ID card, and let them take a photo of my ID card through the webcam. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. You don't get that information. As a recruiter, that's nothing that you should touch. You should not even be requesting that information. And they kept trying to pressure me to do that. They tried to convince me that they allegedly needed to build a profile for me, and that Capital One was the one requesting that they provide a copy of my photo ID through that alleged platform, and that they also needed my date of birth, that they needed my social security number and other details. And I told them I will not provide you any of that information until I get an offer. And first of all, it's not going to be through a webcam either. You'll not take a screenshot of anything. If I have to provide the information, it's going to be in a secure portal for HR where I can put that information. I'm not going to mail you anything through my email, and I'm not going to let you take any screenshots of anything, and I'm not going to send you photos of anything. So that was it. I could clearly see that they were taken aback by that. They were expecting for me to give them that information in that call, so they had to go with the farce once more. And here we come to the day of the alleged interview. In this alleged interview, Vikas Vijay is supposed to be the senior manager in Capital One, and there's supposed to be another manager based on what they said, which then I read who that person was supposed to be, and it was not actually a manager. According to their LinkedIn, it was a lead software engineer. That lead software engineer was Parth Patel, and at least I could notice that this person definitely looked legitimate. Congrats to Parth for keeping his LinkedIn profile up to date, accurate, and professional. So I could see from here that he studied here in Virginia, and he has been working in Capital One, but he didn't limit it to only his experience in Capital One, which so far has been 10 years, but he also had experiences from before, which makes sense, even from all the way back to India. So to me, this person granted a lot of credibility to that. So I said, okay, let's try to keep an open mind and do this interview and see what happens. We got to that interview, and this is what happened. This call was set up by Artech. And one thing that I really point out, it's another red flag. Serious companies don't use Zoom for meetings. They use Microsoft Teams usually, or something similar to that, Cisco WebEx, where you can clearly see their domain, which company they belong to. So for example, if you're in Microsoft Teams, you can see their email, their Capital One email, right? If you're in WebEx, you will see also information that identifies them with the company. So this was all done by people in Artech using Zoom, which in my opinion should be something that companies should not use. I want to point out to a few things that happened here in this interview. As you can see, somebody from Artech is the one handling this interview, creating the interview and managing the interview.
Hey Jorge, hi, good afternoon, how are you?
I'm doing well, how are you doing? I'm going to let you listen to the first part of this conversation, and then I'm going to point out to specific things that to me stood out that screamed fraud.
I'm doing great as well, thank you so much for asking. So, well Jorge, I am Vinay, I am a team lead here at Artech, and I handle Capital One account.
Look at this background here. This is not a background of a company. This is the background of a call center, which is the usual scamming places in India. Most of the scams that are executed throughout the world from India occur in call centers. Take a look at how many people are around this person and look where they're looking at. Look at this person here. We're looking at a reflection of the person through the glass. So this person is sitting in front of him and paying attention to what he is doing. Also pay attention that there's other people around the area paying attention to what he is doing.
I guess you already had a discussion with Kunal yesterday, right? He's the sales account manager and I'm his counterpart. I handle the recruitment activity. I'm just here to introduce you with the hiring manager. As of now, I think your video looks fine.
Now they're bringing up the people from Capital One. Up to this point, I'm assuming that they are legitimate Capital One employees.
You're perfectly audible. I think the manager is here, Parth. Hey Parth, hi, how are you?
Hi, hey all, nice to see you both.
Hello.
Yeah, so Vikas is the hiring manager. I'll be
Oh,
the interviewer today. I'm
perfect.
not sure Vikas is going to join or not. Um,
I think he did. He just did.
And there's the alleged senior manager from Capital One joining the
hey,
Hey
call.
Vikas
Vikas.
is here.
Hey guys, how are you?
Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Raj. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good, thanks.
Perfect. So I'll just take a moment.
Notice something. Everyone here seems to be in a call center. I cannot tell for sure in the case of the two people that are allegedly working in Capital One because their background is blurred, but it looks like they're together in some kind of call center or cubicle setting.
I just Parth, since you said you were the interviewer today, so I just made you the host for this meeting, and now I'll just take leave. I wish you all a very good luck.
All right,
Thanks,
thanks.
everyone.
Hey, is that Jorge?
Okay, now at this point, I am not sure that this is a legitimate process. So I wanted to validate that these two people are who they say they are in some way. So I proposed to them, I sent them an email to their Capital One email, and they replied back so that I can validate that they are actual Capital One employees. And look what they
Am I
say.
saying it right?
And also look at how they react to that request.
Okay. Hey, Jorge, nice to meet you. So my name is Parth Patel. I'll be conducting your DevOps interview today, and throughout the interview, we'll go over Docker, Linux, some AWS related questions, and maybe some scripting as well. Um, yeah, so my role is a lead engineer on my team. Vikas is the senior manager. He's like overlooking all the design decisions and people management activities as well.
Here, this is important, and that's why I mentioned that this person is the only one here lending credibility to this process. He is very professional. He's not trying to pretend he's someone he's not. He clearly said, I'm not a hiring manager, I'm a lead software engineer. Vikas is the senior manager, and he's the one that manages all of that. On my part, I can see that they seem legitimate, but I just need to validate because I've already been through a weird experience with Artech.
Our team is responsible in maintaining machine images, virtual machine images, and Docker containers for the whole company. We build and distribute it to all the accounts across Capital One. So our job is like a shared tech.
Look at the reaction to my request. I made a very simple request. Provide me your email addresses so that I can send you an email and validate that you are who you say you are.
Team, please provide me your Capital One email addresses to validate that you are who you say you are. Interesting.
Okay, this is another reason why I thought that this person was legitimate. He immediately was willing to give me his email address at Capital One. Yeah, I had a weird conversation yesterday with the people from Artech, so that kind of reduced the credibility of the process. So, as you can see, he immediately gave me his email address without any
Okay.
issues. Like they were asking me to provide them with a government ID when that's not usually the process for any company. And that sounds very scammy, so hope you understand that.
Okay, yeah, that's
And he also provided the email address of the manager. But look how the manager reacts, which is something that I'll highlight. Something
fine.
very
This
important.
is really unusual though. All right.
Thank you.
Hey, do we need to provide you or it's something you have to provide us? I'm just not sure. Because
Uh,
that's
they
something,
said they
that's
said
something.
that Capital One requires them to
Mhm.
create a profile for me on your website, and that you request that I give them a government ID and other personally identifiable information when we're not even at the hiring process yet.
Yeah, but that's between Capital One and the Artech, right? It's nothing that we can help here. So I'm not sure why our email address is required.
Here you go. I'm not sure why you're requesting our email. Because I
Yeah.
just want to validate that you are who you say you are. So my request was straightforward. I just want to check that you are who you say you are. And look at what he That's the says. only
Yeah,
way that I can do that right now.
but that's something Vinay should have done, not you as a candidate.
He says that he should not have provided me with his public Capital One email address. Pardon me?
But that's something Vinay should have asked, right? Not you as a candidate. But yeah, that's fine. We can start with the interview process now.
Okay. So now he said, okay, forget about this, start with the interview. But look at how Parth reacts later. It's going to be very important.
Mhm. Okay, I just provided the email addresses just in case you want to validate. I'm not sure how you are going to validate though.
I can validate it by sending you an email and getting a reply from you. If you work for Capital One, you'll get that email and you'll be able to reply. If you don't, you will never get that email, and I'll know because I'll get a reply saying that that person doesn't exist.
Oh, so are you going to do the validation process first before
No,
we
I'll
start the
do it
interview?
after we talk.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just I've already been burned by a lot of uh, scam recruiters, so I'm trying to filter out and validate that. Here you go. Why does he have to look to the side? Who is there? This looks weird. And see how he suddenly is caught off guard when he tries to go ahead.
All right. So can you maybe start by just giving some background on what you have been working on recently?
I'm not going to continue the rest of the interview, but you can see that they definitely don't feel comfortable with this. Something that should not be any cause of concern to them, which is providing me their email address. I'm going to go to the end of the interview when I make a reference to that again, and let's see what reply do I get from them, which is a lie. And here we go. This is where I mention again the email, and look at the reply that I get from I appreciate it very much. So just one last thing. I'm going to send you an email just to validate that you do get emails at Capital One. Can you please just reply? I just want to make sure that you do reply when you
He
get the
cannot
email.
reply to
Thank you very
external
much.
email.
Listen to that. We cannot reply to external emails. That's a lie. That is a total lie. I have talked to many people inside Capital One. I emailed them and they reply all the time. This is a total lie.
Sorry for that. He cannot reply to
Pardon?
external email.
That's a lie. Always look for those pointers, those moments where you can identify people lying to you. That's interesting. I've
Yeah,
never
yeah.
heard of
So
that
if it's
before.
an external email, we cannot reply to that.
Okay, at least I can still validate if I get a response back saying that
Okay.
you exist or don't.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, I do the interview, and then for the next couple of days, they just keep on pushing to receive personally identifiable information from me. And I send them this link that says, why are you doing this? I see a hint of this company being a scam. And if it is a scam, I'm going to make sure that their name is tarnished, because this is what they're doing. They are sending requests saying that they need the photo ID or the driver's license, a picture of my face, which was exactly what they asked for when they asked me to hold that ID next to my face, and information like my social security, etc. Again, I'm pushing against the constant request for PII. And then now this guy starts to backtrack, and he says that that is part of the process that they need to follow. When they accept an offer on the portal, they won't be able to proceed without my ID. And that typically they handle this during the prep stage, and that's illegal. A recruiter should never ask you for any of that. HR is the only people that should ask for that information. And he said, but since you were not comfortable, we didn't push for it and still allowed you to attend the interview. So this is what gave me the impression that even though there were two people that seemed to be working for Capital One, this could have just been staged. The whole thing could have just been staged, and then they would come back again and push for that information. So he said that he sent me the profile of the managers, and then if they decide to extend an offer, then they'll ask for the documents. And I said, okay, if that's the case, then that's good. At the point of receiving an offer, then I'll be able to provide that information, and I had no problem with that. And once again, I confirm I have never received this type of request for any company before. I can provide the information once I get an offer. And that was the last that I heard from Rohit Aswani. Then for the rest of the process, I was harassed by that first person that you saw in that call, Vinay Srivastava. It was constantly getting called, constantly getting sent emails and requests. For example, like this. This is another way that they tried to retrieve personally identifiable information from me. They sent me a link to a work opportunity tax credit form. And they said that they asked me to complete this pre-screening questionnaire that is not a pre-screening questionnaire. A work opportunity tax credit is a form that is, number one, optional, that you fill out that could grant the company that is hiring you some tax credits based on certain conditions. For example, if you are a person that has been unemployed for a long time and you were receiving SNAP, Medicaid, and some sort of governmental help for a period of time, that could be something that grants them a credit. For example, if you're a person that just left prison within 1 year, then they could get a tax credit for employing you. And there's other reasons, for example, if you have a disability and things like that. So that's what this form is about. It's for the company that is hiring you to apply for tax credits. And this form, number one, is not mandatory. You're not obliged to fill this form. This is an optional form. Additionally, I filled this form many times before, and this form never requests for date of birth, social security number, or anything remotely similar to that. There's just questions in there that you have to answer. For example, do you have any disability? And then they give you a list of disabilities. Did you receive SNAP, TAMF, or any government aid for the past 6 months? Have you been released from prison within 1 year? Things like that. It's a yes or no question. That's all that that form should have. But look at what they sent me to. This is the form that the link pointed to. And as you can clearly see, they're trying to get information like my social security number. And they're also requesting my date of birth. In this part, you cannot see it because it was farther down, but they were also asking for my date of birth. And that's definitely information that I'm not going to provide at this stage. This form was sent to me today after that person from the call, Vinay Srivastava, called me 2 times early in the day. He called me very early in the morning, about 9 something in the morning. And then he called me again at 11 something in the morning. And then I got that message requesting me to fill out that form about noon. And I purposefully did not fill out that form. So I just left it be. And I just waited and waited and waited. Then I sent an email to the person saying, is there an update? Is there an update? Because you called me and you told me that they wanted to have another final round of interview with me tomorrow. You said you were going to give me that meeting invite for that interview, but you have not done so. And then he said that they needed information. They needed to confirm several things. Number one, they needed my information. They needed me to fill a form. They needed me to provide my details. And they also asked that I confirm that I would take whatever rate they submitted me at. And I would reject all other companies that I was in the process with within 24 hours of receiving an offer from Capital One. I said, that's not the way it works, sir. If you want me to reject all other offers, I already told Kunal, the person on that prep call the day before, that for me to reject all other offers and all other processes that I was going through and accept that within 24 hours, I would have to get more on this contract because there are no benefits. They confirmed that there were no benefits. So then he said, no, we submitted you at 85. That's what you're going to get. Are you going to accept it or no? And I said, that's not what we discussed. I'll have to look at the options. And if that's what you're offering me, then I will not accept it within 24 hours. I have to consider the other offers that are coming in the way. And the person clearly got angry because I would not budge and I would not give them the information. And he told me straight up, if you don't agree with any of our requests, then I am not going to push you to that interview tomorrow that they asked. And I said, that's perfect. You're clearly scammers and I'm no longer interested in working with you. And that's how I ended it. And as you can see, the process is really shady. After that, I decided to go into the Better Business Bureau and just check more carefully about what people are saying, because when I looked at it, there were some reviews that were not posted. I come across this review here from Elisa H that was on 9/11. The way that the BBB website works is that you submit your review and then they read it and they filter out some information that they consider sensitive and then they post it. So by the time that it gets posted, it could be several days from the moment that you wrote it. So this is a new review, and it turned out to be exactly what happened to me, which were the red flags that I noticed. So this person said, I recently granted Artech the right to represent me for a contractor role at a large tech company. Makes a lot of sense. It's kind of similar to what happened to me, a large bank. And I was stunned by the unprofessionalism and dishonesty of the Artech employees that work with Artech. Artech's practices are unprofessional at best and intentionally misleading at worst. Artech's employees contacted me via an email about the contractor role, and once I had an interview scheduled with the hiring manager, a third Artech employee met with me virtually to prep. It is exactly the process that happened to me. And she said, the day of the interview, I noticed that the calendar event Artech sent to the tech hiring manager and myself had a version of my resume attached that I'd never seen before. And this was a big red flag that I honestly was not aware of. So I was like, they sent me my resume back, but I didn't read it. Let me see what's in there. And I read that she says, incorrect details about my experience had been added to the resume, and misleading changes were made to my working history. For instance, Artech changed one of my job titles from Assistant Professor of English to Assistant Program Manager of Content. It seemed like AI gibberish based on keywords in the job description. Artech also added a claim that I had 5 years of experience in a particular area, even though I had only 3 years of experience, as clearly indicated by my dates of employment. Naturally, these changes caused confusion during the interview. After the interview, I emailed Artech's employee, attaching the dishonest review of my resume and providing my edits in the margins. I noted 7 instances where they had either added a false claim or revised the resume in a way that was misleading. I spoke on the phone with a third Artech employee the next business day. She informed me that Artech doesn't add false information to candidate resumes, which is a lie, but clearly they do. She said the second employee I had only interacted with via email claimed to have received my approval for the changes made to my resume, but he didn't have written documentation of this exchange, since I never communicated with him in any way except email. His lack of email confirmation proves that he had never received my approval, and that's exactly what happened to me. Somebody made a change on my resume. Well, in my case, it was Rohit. It was the first person that I talked to, but they did that, and I noticed it after reading this review. And then I kept on reading more reviews, and everything kept getting worse and worse and worse. Like, they're really performing fraudulent actions, not only against candidates, but also against their clients. So I hope that sometime somebody from Capital One sees this, if they are actually working with them, because up to this point, I'm not sure that they are actually working with this company. But if they are, please review your contracts with these people, because they're clearly lying to you. They're lying to you just as they're lying to the employees to get the money out of you. Please stop working with these Indian companies and companies from outside the country. You are being scammed by them too. So now I go back into my resume and I figure out, did they do that to me? And guess what? They did. This is the copy of the resume that they submitted to Capital One. Instead of giving them my resume that I provided to them, They added extra stuff there that I did not tell them, or that is just not accurate. All of this section here, they added. That was not on my resume. And a lot of this information is also tweaked. And I kept on reviewing my resume. Most of it was correct, but definitely this top section here is not correct. They are adding stuff there that is not what the candidate gives them. And I hope that this gives you an idea of how you can identify when a company is actually a scam and what things you have to look out for when you're in the interview process. For example, let's just highlight things. In the interview, you saw that they were in a call center. It looked like a call center. There was lack of professionalism throughout the whole process. They lied, not only to me, but to the client. They submitted a false resume with things that they added on their own. They constantly kept going back and forth on the negotiation, trying to get me to accept a very low rate that I told them from the very beginning I was not okay with. And they used that as leverage to try to extract personally identifiable information from me. So never, ever give a photo ID or let them take a picture of your photo ID. Don't let them retrieve information from you, such as your social security number, your date of birth, and other details that are sensitive like that, because that information could be used very easily to request a credit card on your name and stack it up with debt and screw your credit score. So always refuse to provide any type of information of that type to recruiters. Recruiters, under no circumstance, should ask you for that type of information. The only thing that they should know is your experience, your credentials, and your abilities to perform the work that they're trying to fill. Only HR, once you get an offer, should request that kind of information, and it should be through a secure platform that you can make sure that it has a SSL certificate and that it's a trustworthy entity where you can upload that information or fill out a form. Information like their social security number and your date of birth and things like that are things that you put in an I-9 form once you get hired. You never gave that even to HR. If a person from HR tells you, give me that information in an email, it's a scam, because that's not how it works. You should fill out an I-9 form. And that's going to be it. I hope this was informative for you. It gave you a glimpse of what things to watch out for. Pay attention, learn, and hopefully prevent this from happening to you. I hope that the two people from Capital One that I taught are legitimate, and I hope that they learn about the fraud that is being engaged against their company and they take action with it. And if they're actually a fraud and they're not a Capital One employee, I hope that karma comes after them. So that's going to be it for this video. I hope you liked it, and be careful. Be very careful.